Welcome to the Untitled Film Project Podcast. See the movie? Then join us. We'll talk about it. We're talking about Disney Pixar's Elemental, where they take us to a world where the elements have to live together. Sort of.
Water is always getting into something. And fire? As ordered, we run a little hot. But we all live by one simple rule. Elements cannot mix.
And we'll also be answering the big question.
The big question this week, and we want you to start thinking about it now, because when we get to it in about 20, 25 minutes, we want you there with us to join the discussion. What is what adjective should I use here? Crazy? What
Bizarre?
is it? Bizarre? Fun? Crazy?
You can fill in your own
Unique
adjective.
is good. Thank you, Bradford.
A little more broad, because you're setting it up to be something big.
I know, that's why I was really struggling with that. So name a unique instance out at the theater or the drive-in, whatever. What is the kind of most unique thing that's happened to you or you have found yourself in? Situation?
Excluding Hanky Panky.
Yes, because unfortunately that is not unique.
Well, what kind of theaters you been going to?
No, not for me. I'm just saying, like, for people. So, which I learned from Alanis Morissette, actually. So, the most unique situation out to a theater or a drive-in. That's what we want to know.
All right, while you're watching the movie, what happened? We want to know. Disney, Pixar, Elemental. Let's get our initial takes. Let's start with Jeremy Kagover.
Wow, to start off, I know
Deep breath.
I know it's tough.
Inhale, exhale.
I enjoyed the voice acting performances for the most part. The story itself, a little vanilla. Didn't really care for the story itself. I liked the idea of the symbolism of the hot and the cold and the night. They're different, so they can't live together. I like that on a surface. It's one of those things where, like, you watch a commercial, for example, and it's like it's just bad. Mm-hmm. But there is a part of your brain that acknowledges that, oh, when they wrote that, I bet it worked. On paper, it's a good idea. In execution, right? I'm not going to call this, but I'm just saying, like, it's a very vanilla idea to me. It's a very vanilla story. And I will say, the last thing I'll say is it lacked the charm of typical Disney Pixar movies for me. There was very few laughter moments. And I think I only chuckled, I think, twice. In an hour and a half. I mean,
it's not good.
Again, the movie was fine, but I expect so much more from a major Pixar release. I expect some sort of comedic element, and it's almost like they decided not to do that. It was so absent that it was almost like, no, there's no funny lines allowed. And then they eventually put in like 2 or 3. Like it was just, I don't know, it was weird. It was missing. It was missing that part for me. That's my initial take.
I certainly was not looking forward to this movie. I've talked about that on the podcast.
If you follow us on TikTok or YouTube Shorts, you know that is the case.
Yeah, they just gave me no compelling reason to want to see this movie. I didn't see any of the appeal, and the conflict, just didn't seem interesting to me. Fire and water can't get together. Romeo and Juliet, and this movie absolutely lived up to my expectations, which were pretty low. They didn't achieve anything. If they mixed elements together, they made mud here because it was ground and water. I found myself not laughing. Maybe one or two. Most of the jokes seemed to be based on water and fire puns. Not funny, not amusing.
Yep.
And the characters, I wasn't pulled in. I was not emotionally invested in them very much. So I was disappointed that Pixar has gotten to this level. Justin Bradford.
So it's interesting you say that about the puns, Jim, because I'm now seeing a marketing campaign that is focused on the puns. Disney's put out, there's a Facebook video ad that's focused on pun jokes being a selling point of the movie.
Well, that's pretty much all they had.
Right,
so.
which is very curious. Like, you even brought that up, that is what they're working on and basing it on, that people are going to enjoy those types of jokes, and it fell flat for you. So I'm curious to see what the general audience thinks now that it's in wide release, to see if it falls flat with them or if they enjoy it. So it is curious, because and I remember I saw that yesterday, that it was focused on, we're pruning, like one of those things we saw in the trailers. Like it seemed like almost every joke we saw in the trailer.
Yeah.
No, that's true. That's true. The sponge gag was in the trailer. The Marco Polo gag was in the trailer. The pruning was in the trailer.
The body type.
That's another great example that I forgot that I'm now stepping on your initial take. But you're welcome. I'm going to go ahead and keep going though. That was another thing that I did notice was that the kind of highlight moments were all used up. Yeah, and that's an amateur thing. That's not a Disney Pixar thing for me.
Right.
You have to market your movie. I'm not taking anything away from using, people using like funny lines and this and that. That's all fine. You have to market it. Okay. But when you spend all of your comedic currency in a 1 minute trailer or a 2 minute trailer, and that's all that
it means you have nothing else.
Yeah, it means you have nothing. It's so lazy to me. All right, maybe lazy is the wrong word. It's amateur.
Can I go now?
Yes, you can go now. But first you must kiss me because I'm Irish.
Do not touch me.
Yield the floor to Justin Bradford.
Thanks. So
first I have one more thing.
I'm just kidding. This guy, and he's going to edit it to where I'm pointing at him on the correct side as well. Anyways.
Yeah.
In the moment, overall, I did enjoy it. In the moment. As I got to thinking about the movie more, I started realizing how it's a plot that we've seen before, how it, to me, felt lazy with a lot of the humor and the jokes. Beautiful film. Like, I felt the animation styling was gorgeous.
Agreed.
It was wasted on a plot that we've seen before, which is parents move, they immigrate, they're in a new land. First generation child is expected to follow in the footsteps of their family, does not want to do that. And throw in love that they're just not supposed to be together. One side of the family, one side is accepting, the other side isn't. We have seen it so many times in film,
especially done really well lately. I mean, because you could say that's one of the major themes of Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Absolutely.
The TV show Beef on Netflix is the same thing. It's expectations, immigrants coming over. What, are you going to live up to their expectation? Right. It has been done well, and this one was just done for the sake of doing it again.
Like, I feel like as I look back with all the other Pixar films, this is mid. And it shouldn't be falling in the middle anywhere. They should not be putting out releases that fall in the middle. We have expectations now of unique storylines, stories that we've never seen before. You even look at, not long ago, Soul. It was an exploration, even though it was pandemic times, it didn't get the release that it deserved, but it's exploring something different that we haven't explored before. You look at Onward was something that was different, at least in terms of the way it was set out. You have your Dungeons and Dragons type of theme and trying to get back to their father and have to realize and deal with loss. Coco, completely discovering new culture and everything. But then you have Lightyear, overall fell flat. Elemental, I think, falls flat in the storytelling. Audiences, I think, overall are going to like it because families are going to enjoy this film. But overall, as a film, when you compare it to others, which that's what I know I do.
That's what our job is.
It is not the same level of overall storytelling we've come to expect from Disney Pixar. Animation, again, is beautiful. What they do with reflection and lighting with fire, and especially in the fire world, what they deal with there, I feel like is absolutely beautiful. Looks great. Storytelling falls flat is something we've seen before, and it makes me roll my eyes a little bit when we see this because we've had the story told to us so many different times, and there's nothing new in terms of that. I did like the immigrant story and how they're dealing with respect and how her father did not get that same respect when he chose to immigrate to a new land. I mean, you feel connected in the moment, but when you reflect back on the story, going, it was nothing new. There's nothing earth-shattering about this story that makes me want to remember it. This is not one of those movies that I'm going to want to just turn on and go back and watch. I watch Coco all the time. I watch it all the time on repeat. I've watched Onward multiple times. I'll watch different Toy Stories all the time. I'll watch so many Inside Out.
Is there any rewatchability with Elemental?
Only if you want to see beautiful animation styling, but it still doesn't compare to Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
There's new standards being set because we're starting to see more of a Disney's forcing Pixar to push these suckers out year after year, when before there used to be a couple years between Pixar movies because they needed the time to work on them. Now it's every single year or even 2 times a year. There's expectations of multiple releases, and I don't think they're having enough time to develop new stories.
But we're getting quantity over quality.
Yeah, so overall, it's mid. It's not awful. It's
No.
something we've seen before. Families, if you take your kids, they're going to enjoy it. Overall, I think they're just going to enjoy it, have a fun time in the movie theater, seeing something really pretty with a little bit of humor. That puns might fall better on other people, but overall, it's just not a beautiful product.
I think you're going to forget about it by the time you hit the doors of the theater to go out to the parking lot.
It's forgettable. Unfortunately.
All right, well, let's peel back the layers a little more on Pixar's Elemental, the story that we can all agree is not very original, and there's no groundbreaking being done here, just maybe the level of animation that we have come to expect from Pixar, because they should be really good at it, and they are. Was there anything about the two characters? I don't even want to call it a love story, because it really is. It's maybe a courtship between Ember and Wade. Did that have any pull for you? Her being the hot-headed son of the or daughter of the immigrant, and he being the really happy-go-lucky, super accepting family that just kind of do. Was it? I know I'm setting this up for an answer that is not good.
I'll go first, and because I know this is kind of our deeper dive section traditionally, and the only note that I have for my deeper dive is Leah Lewis, who was the voice of Ember, was tremendous. I thought she was great, and you're thinking, okay, well, most of the time she's just really talking or getting mad. How hard is that really? But at the end, when she has to show a serious, sad emotion because Wade is apparently dead, and her dad is in bad health, and she let her dad down because he finds out that it was the one that sprung the leak in the basement, like all that stuff. I believed the character on screen because her voice acting was that good. She had the quivering lip, even though you couldn't see it. She's clearly fighting back tears, which you can't see. Like all the things that you can't see. That's the mark of a true voice acting prodigy, if you will, is when you can feel the emotion through the screen, even though you can't see anything about the person, especially if they're not animated as a person.
Right.
And I felt every ounce of her suffering and sorrow and agony and helplessness, all those things in that, final 5 minutes, right, of that part of the movie. So Leah Lewis, huge marks for me.
That's where I do give credit, and you mentioned your initial thoughts, is the voice acting overall with this was tremendous, because they weren't going with celebrities. They're going with people that could get the job done.
Okay, but Catherine O'Hara's in there.
But they're not. But with that, they're not marketing those voices.
No, that part is true.
That's
true.
Is they cast this based on whose voice is going to fit the role best.
That's a great point.
Compared to so many other animated films.
Especially like a DreamWorks SKG movie.
Right. Kevin Hart voices this, The Rock voices this.
Yes.
We didn't get that.
They don't even tell you the plot. They just list off the stars.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the selling point for this. The selling point for what they're trying to accomplish here is obviously the animation and the story. Is what they're trying to sell. They are not marketing the voice actors whatsoever, and I appreciate that.
Isn't that ironic, though, that this is a movie where story's kind of weak. You might need to market some
Punch
stars.
it up a little bit.
Yeah,
Well,
which is very interesting.
Big though, either.
No. I'm saying like if there was ever a time to do it, this is the movie to do it.
Right.
It's not the other ones that are actually good despite the top list talent that they instead of voice actors. It's this one that they use voice actors, and you're like, oh well, good for you. That's how you should be doing it. But the story,
you gave them a terrible script.
Yeah. You kind of failed them.
Unique is the director Peter Sohn was also a voice actor. Did you on? He's also an animator.
I did not know that.
So that was a unique product as well. For trying to paint positive light on this, it's how they're using somebody who's been with Pixar since 2000. He voiced in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Gonki, very small role, but obviously not the guy in the chair.
Right.
Socks and Lightyear.
Yep.
He's done.
And that was excellent.
Yes, he was in Luca. Yeah. He's been in The Good Dinosaur. He's been in so many different things. So for him to have that switch over to the director role,
and good for him.
Very good for him, and helping to tell that story. So it's just neat to see those aspects of. They're not trying to market it with major celebrity directors or voice actors or anything of that sort. So I commend Disney on that, at least getting people that fit these roles the way they feel like they should be fit.
And all I'm saying is that it's ironic that this is the one they choose to do that in.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. I just think it's unfortunate that I think a lot of things were set up for success. Like you said, there's some pretty decent, actors, and I'm sure this voice actor turned director is now, earned that role. But the source material is where it all begins and ends, and it ends. Because there's no good source material. This is not a very compelling story. If all those other movies that had the same themes didn't come out, maybe. But if you are doing this, and this has been in, the pop culture landscape of movies and TV shows and other things for, a really good solid 10 years strong, this immigrant coming here and blending with society and parent expectations, bring something new to the table or don't bring it at all.
I will say that I think this is going to do really, really well with the under 10 demographic.
Ooh, I was going to go with 8.
Okay, 8 is fine.
10 maybe.
Maybe for the same reasons, though.
I don't know about 8. I agree more with Gover.
Well, no, I'm just saying,
on this.
but we might be talking about the same thing, okay? Because if you haven't seen this story before, it's probably going to hit you pretty hard. A kid growing up who's never seen the 7 great examples of exactly what we're talking about, right? This is their first introduction to it. They're going to be like, whoa, because it is visually amazing. It is visually stunning. The voice acting is great for the most part. And the story, again, to us is vanilla. But if you've never seen it before, it's probably pretty powerful because of the visual components being so in your face, fire versus water, right? And so I think maybe for that kind of 8, 9, 10-year-old demographic and below, they can get a really good enjoyment out of this because they have not seen it before. But for us who have seen it, or teenagers who have seen, I saw these last 4 Disney movies or whatever that are like this, it pales.
Well, I feel like as well, the people that will probably relate more to this are folks that have first generational trauma.
Sure.
As well.
Yes.
Those are people that might relate, whether they're a teenager or not, if they haven't seen this type of story before, because they can relate to the pressure that a parent might put on that has immigrated to the United States, for instance, or things like that. Those are the people that are going to connect. So obviously didn't connect with the 3 of us, but there are going to be people out there that will connect deeper with the story, especially if they haven't seen it before, like you mentioned.
Well, that's the key, though. Only if you haven't seen it before.
Right. Because those connected with me on all those other projects that we talked about.
Yes.
They connect, and I am not the product of an immigrant.
Agreed.
Like my parents, were born and, raised in the United States. So, but those connected, those transcended. I didn't need that experience to understand the humanity and the difficulties that go along with that. Whereas, this one, maybe that's too heady a concept for a 10-year-old. I don't know.
I don't think anymore nowadays with what they're exposed to.
That could be.
In terms of media, that kids are way smarter than I think a lot of adults give them credit for.
No, there's no question.
Let's score this movie. Elemental, Disney Pixar. Let's begin with Jeremy Gover.
All right. Carl's Date is the short film that's shown prior to the feature film Elemental. It was better than Elemental. The animation was outstanding, as Mr. Shiny over here, Bradford, mentioned, and then we have all mentioned. The jokes were weak. They used them all up in the trailers, and even I wouldn't call any of them uproariously funny, but they, it was like, oh, okay, that would have hit, but then I've already seen them before. The story is recycled. We talked about that ad nauseum as well. If you want a great movie about differences, go see Zootopia. It's tremendous. 5.5.
Okay. Fair enough. I'm going to echo a lot of those same points because I actually don't need to. I'm just going to retweet what you just said because I agreed with you on every one of those points. I just really thought, it looked nice. It was eye candy. There was some themes. I don't think they were explored very well. I think the comedy was not very good. I've mentioned this in some other forums where I thought like even the water jokes were way better on SpongeBob than they were in this movie. Okay, like there's just they weren't funny. They didn't land, and I just feel like they failed us, and we know that they can do so much better. So I'm giving Elemental a 4. Justin Bradford.
Cuts a little deep.
That's wow. All right. So is this bad like Cars 2? No. It is not.
Mr. Shiny being shiny again over here.
Is this Toy Story 2? No, absolutely not. It is nowhere near as good as Toy Story and Toy Story 2. Again, for me, this falls somewhere low middle for me when it comes to Disney Pixar. Our expectations overall are high because they've given us those expectations on what we should think should happen from a Disney Pixar movie. Unique storytelling, beautiful animation, some exploration of thought process that we've never had before, or exploration of culture that we've never had before. We didn't get that with this film.
None of those.
We have those expectations. Carl's date was a wonderful send-off for that character with Ed Asner. I thought it was heartwarming, also a little heartbreaking, but also a good exploration of senior citizens, what they go through with the loss when they're trying to move on or just continue to live their lives. In such a short film about a man and his dog that can talk, we got so much more out of that than we got out of Elemental.
I so agree.
Elemental, beautiful animation. I enjoyed the music. I enjoyed the voiceover acting, but because the story was just not unique to me, that's where it falls to a 6.5 for me. And that is very low when you think of the scale for Disney Pixar movies, when overall, again, I know we all like to make fun of me, but you look at Rotten Tomatoes, on the tomato meter for Elemental, from the critical side, is 75%. That's really low for a Disney Pixar movie, I believe. From the critical
I would say,
side.
if you're looking at Disney Pixar, which usually has a bar very high,
Yes.
because they've got a body of work that is worthy of recognition, and
100%.
they just didn't do it here.
75% critic score, 90% audience score, which I think is even kind of low for audience score for Disney Pixar right now. They're typically in the upper 90s. I know it just came out, and that's probably going to even out a little bit, but I think this shows the expectations that people have for this company to put out something new and unique, and is not matching that with this film.
Sure, we love to talk about the movies that just came out, but we also just love movies in general, and we like to answer the big question in every episode. The big question this time around is...
And before I give the big question, which we did earlier in the show, we want to hear your feedback. This is a great way to interact with us, right? When you go see a movie, what's the number one thing you like to do? Whether the movie's good, bad, or indifferent, you'd love to talk to your friends about it. Well, we are your friends. We are inviting you to the conversation. Just because you don't have a mic doesn't mean, like with us at the table, doesn't mean that we don't want to hear your opinion.
You're still here at the table.
Yeah, that's right.
Try to put them in their place, Gover.
No. Darren, welcome to the table, Bradford. Join us on Twitter or all the social medias, of course. Talk to us there. And, of course, feel free to yell at your device as well.
Especially when Gover's talking.
That's correct.
Yes.
Today's question is, name a weird instance, or a unique, I think is what we decided on earlier, name a unique instance in the theater that you were at.
So you had to be watching a movie at the drive-in, in a theater, or somewhere.
Or on the way. Yeah.
Could be in, the bonus room of your house.
Could be.
A
That's
sleepover.
Right. As long as there's a movie involved and something crazy happened, like your dog walked in front of your 20-inch TV and took a crap on the, while you're watching with your first date. I mean, anything remotely stupid like that, that's what we want to know. Let's start with Jim.
I had read a book called Firefox. And it was a thriller. It was a spy thriller. I loved it. I was like a Cold War espionage adventure thing. And I saw that it was coming out in the movie theaters. And it was starring Clint Eastwood. Okay? And Clint Eastwood has to go behind the Iron Curtain and steal a state-of-the-art plane that the Russians have created that connects mentally to the pilot and can actually, so it's a little sci-fi, and it's like, this thing is such a valuable weapon. He's got to steal it to, so that the Russians don't have an advantage in the Cold War. Clint Eastwood is playing this character of somebody who is an operative who doesn't do this anymore. The movie opens with him on his own private property, and he's out for a jog. And I tell you this because the opening scene of the movie is where the fun happened in the movie theater. So I'm seeing this in the middle of the summer. I'm there with my brothers, right? And we're just, goofballs. And the theater's got maybe 30, 40 people in it tops. The sound isn't on. And, it's showing the movie, but there is no sound whatsoever playing. So Clint Eastwood is jogging, and somebody, a few rows ahead of us, starts stomping their feet like a Foley artist to the rhythm of what he would be jogging at. And then all of a sudden, there's a helicopter chasing him, which is agents coming to say, we need you for this mission. And somebody else is going... And the whole theater is doing the sound effects, and somebody else is going as he's jogging and trying to get away from this helicopter. And it was the funniest improv. Nobody planned it. Nobody knew it was coming. And then after about maybe 5 minutes of this, and we're absolutely in tears, laughing so hard at everybody just in the theater taking a role that needed to be done. They shut the movie down. They said, give us 5 minutes. We fixed the movie. And so we ended up watching the movie with the sound back on. But that 5 minutes before the movie had any sound whatsoever was one of the funniest times I've ever had in a movie theater, because people just took it upon themselves to like, well, I guess it's up to us. And it was a blast. So that's my fun experience inside of a movie theater that absolutely nobody knew was coming.
I feel like Jim should have gone last.
It's hard to follow.
There's no way I can follow that.
I'll try to follow if you want.
No, I'll go ahead and get out of the way, because I feel like mine's going to be sandwiched. So
that's very considerate of the listeners.
Yes. So 2 short ones. Most theaters now have it to where you can select your seat, right?
Yeah.
I typically will try to go to either an early morning showing. Luckily, my local theater will sometimes have 9 a.m. showings on Fridays or Saturdays.
Nice, if you can get them.
Crowds. So going to see Spider-Man Across the This is really recent.
Yeah.
Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. It's a theater that has 5 rows. At the point when I selected my seat the day before, I was the only person going to be in that theater at 9 a.m. I am pulling up to the theater. I always do this quick check. Okay, let's just see if there's any idiot that has decided to sit very close to me, because I will move. I don't like people. I want to experience a movie, if I can, by myself in the center seat in the back, with as much space as possible. Lo and behold, a family of 5 chose the seats right next to me with the entire rest of the theater empty. Like, you've got to be kidding me. And here's the thing. The week before, when I also was going to see a film in Dolby, empty theater. Like, this theater holds 200 people maybe, and maybe only 15 seats taken. I'm in the middle. A group of 7 chose the seats right next to me, and they could have chosen anywhere else. I'm like, what kind of luck?
You have animal magnetism. They can't resist you. They're drawn to you.
Me. So before I get into the theater, cancel reservation, rebook to another one in a different row. And they come in, this whole family, who, when you see it on the screen, says, you know what? I'm going to sit right next to a stranger, because I enjoy those interactions. I know Glover's had this happen to him.
I have. That was actually my story.
When you can select your seats.
I'm pivoting now.
Well, sorry.
That's fine.
When you can select your seats, why on earth would you say, you know what, in an empty theater, I want to sit next to somebody else? There's just, what kind of social mechanism is going through your head?
It's like walking into the main lobby of a giant hotel, and 2 elevator doors open up. One of them is crowded. The other one is empty. And you go, yeah, I think I'm going to try to jam into the one with 15 people in it.
Let me get another disease.
What are they thinking?
So the other short one is when the Muppets movie came out in 2011. This is outside of Nashville. I go to the theater, and I sit down, and I realize I'm there by myself. The entire theater is packed with families. And you have this one dude in his upper 20s by himself sitting there. I felt so creepy. It was the middle of a weekend. And I'm just eating my popcorn, looking around like there's young kids, families everywhere, and I'm the only single male in that theater. And I'm the one laughing the loudest as well.
Yep.
So I'm the Muppet super fan, enjoying this return of the Muppets, and then afterwards, people just gonna look like, "What is this guy?
This guy's gonna. I bet he's in a windowless van.
Free candy."
All right, Jeremy K. Goer, I think we stole some of your ideas.
I pivoted. It's okay.
But, I know you've seen a lot of movies, so you've got to have other stories.
I have. I could bring up the time where I went to an opening night Star Wars release, and somebody showed up in the theater riding a tauntaun.
Wow.
God, I wish it was a real one.
Was it two people in a tauntaun suit?
No, it was a guy. You know those Halloween costumes where you like walk in them and they look like the legs, and then they put the
yes.
legs. Okay, well, he had a flocked one.
Oh,
It was like hairy. Oh, it was awesome. Or I could bring up the time where I went to see Gremlins 2, and you know the part where the tape melts? In the middle of there were audible boos in my audience, and multiple people popped out of their seats, pissed off, nearly running to the exits to go tell the theater operators something's wrong with the tape before they realize it's a gag.
It was supposed to be.
Success to the filmmakers for doing that. You know, but I mean, it was
got
it was heated about 5 seconds.
like in She-Hulk, when all of a sudden it goes to the menu.
Yes, a little bit so.
Right.
But I will bring up the time, because Bradford took my creepy person next to me for no reason story, that I was sitting in the theater, I was minding my own business. The trailers are on. Well, this is back in the 90s, and the Romeo and Juliet remake trailer comes on. The one Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. And the trailer, it's visually interesting, like it always. Trailers are, heart pumping, blah, 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 blah. And then it's like, bang, this summer, whatever it was going to be, right? Dead silent. Okay, as most trailers are. You don't notice it until something like this happens. But it's dead silent. The guy right behind me, I'm not with him. All of a sudden he goes, man, Bill's going to be pissed they messed with his movie. And the whole place just died. It was like it was so funny, and it was unreal. He called him Bill instead of Will. Yeah, Bill Shakespeare. It was so great. Again, not as weird as creepy person sitting next to me eating a Subway sandwich, which happened because Bradford took a very similar story. But I will say that was
What kind of sandwich was it?
Dude, I tried.
We know it's not tuna. You've been listening to the Untitled Film Project Podcast. We would love to hear your unique story of what happened while you were watching a movie. I'm sure you've got some ones that we can't tell, but we certainly want to hear yours. Leave a comment, talk to us on social media, and check us out on the website that contains all of the different stuff that we bring to the table with the Untitled Film Project Podcast.
UntitledFilmProjectPod.com.
Thank you for listening to the Untitled Film Project Podcast. To support the show, please rate, review, follow, and subscribe. Original music by Jeremy Schwartz. Special thanks to the Music City Film Critics Association. Editing and post-production by Jeremy K. Gover. Voiceover by Chad Bennett.